Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to talk about UFC Shanghai. Mingyang Zhang versus Johnny Walker. And my friends, it's going on this Saturday morning for us, night for them, live at the Shanghai Indoor Stadium in Shanghai, China. We got the emerging Chinese knockout artist, Mingyang Zhang, taking on the former top prospect, Johnny Walker, in the main event. So without further ado, my friends, let's get right down to business, because in this main event, we got Johnny Walker. He's 21-9, taking on Mingyang Zhang, who's 19-6. And currently they got it Mingyang Zhang minus 305. The comeback on Johnny Walker is plus 255. So Mingyang Zhang is 27. Johnny Walker's 33. Johnny Walker is 6'6". Mingyang Zhang is 6'2". And Johnny Walker is going to have a 7-inch reach advantage at 82 inches of reach. So this is going to be a banger in the main event at UFC Shanghai. And as I mentioned in my intro, Johnny Walker, the former top prospect. I remember when this guy first came into the UFC, man, I thought this guy could even give John Jones a run for his money, because we hadn't seen many 205ers with the physical attributes to go out there and match someone like John Jones. John Jones had a 10-inch reach advantage over everyone, 10 years younger than everyone, and like 5 inches taller than everyone. And then the division started to move fast, and then he started to struggle against the 205ers. Then he moves up to heavyweight. And I thought Johnny Walker was one of the 205ers that could give him issues, but man, Johnny Walker has just not developed into the prospect that I thought he'd be. I mean, you see the athleticism, you see that the guy's 6'6", but it's like, dude, you're like one of the tallest guys in the weight class. How about you fight behind a jab? Nope. It's like flying knees, axe kicks, spinning stuff, which, don't get me wrong, if he's able to connect on it, he can finish the fight, he can close the show. But like the in-betweens have just not developed. Like, dude, I need a good jab and teep game since you're 6'6". And I just haven't seen that from Johnny Walker. Not to mention, in addition to him not fighting fundamentally sound, the dude's also got no chin whatsoever. He's been knocked out cold 6 times. And when he gets knocked out, I mean, there's some of the goofiest knockouts you've ever seen, almost like cartoonish reactions. So I'm worried about Johnny Walker. That being said, he's taking a year off. So, I mean, on one hand, you can say, hey, you know, he's given his brain time to heal since the last couple knockout losses he's taken. But I mean, I don't think that this guy's changed anything. He's 33 years old. I think he is who he is. And with Mingyang Zhang, I'm pretty impressed with this guy. You know, people often talk about how Mingyang Zhang's got 19 wins, 19 finishes, and all of them are in the first round. So people like to paint him in this light as if he's a first round or bust guy, but I disagree. I think this guy fights very technically sound. I think he has a reputation for being a brawler and a banger because, you know, he gets all these finishes, but actually, man, I can tell that this guy's done some work in Thailand. And you know, that fight he had against Anthony Smith, I get it. It's the ghost of Anthony Smith, but no one in the UFC has ever gotten Anthony Smith out of there in the first round with strikes. Usually Anthony Smith is really good at taking a prolonged ass whooping, and he could not take a prolonged ass whooping against Mingyang Zhang. I mean, just the technique on those elbows was so disgusting. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's a future top 10 guy. Like, I get it. You know, he hasn't had the stiffest competition yet, but he's handled everybody accordingly. Now, on paper, this is a step up in competition against Johnny Walker. But honestly, guys, I don't think it's going to play out like a step up in competition. I think that these odds are correct, and that Mingyang Zhang is going to come out here and floor Johnny Walker with something big and get a disgusting, devastating knockout, set himself up for a huge fight, and enter the top 10. So I'm going Mingyang Zhang to come out here and knock out Johnny Walker in the first round. Co-main event of the evening in the featherweight division. We got Brian T-City Ortega. He's 16-4, taking on Aljamain Sterling, who's 24-5. Currently, they got it Aljamain Sterling minus 270. The comeback on Brian Ortega is plus 230. So Sterling's 36, Ortega's 34. Ortega's 1 inch taller at 5'8", but it's Sterling who's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage at 71 inches of reach. So just so y'all know, this is a 5-round co-main event. And that makes it kind of interesting because Brian Ortega is one of these opportunistic finishers. He's got a bunch of finishes in round 3 of fights that he's losing up until then. And you make one mistake against a guy like Brian Ortega, he can catch your chin, he can dangle off your neck. Like I said, very, very opportunistic. But with Aljamain Sterling, I know I've been kind of, you know, harsh on him in the past, and in my opinion, deservedly so. But here's the reality. Aljamain Sterling is a very good fighter, and he's very tough to deal with. Number one, he's got a lot of output, a lot of volume. I know it might not look the prettiest, and it looks kind of janky when he strikes. And look, his striking will never look good, but it's very, very effective, and he can just spam volume. And he's got that body type where he's super long, lots of front kicks, punches and bunches. Look, the punches aren't going to have any sting behind them at all, but he can just pepper you for 3 straight rounds, kind of like he did to Pedro Munoz. But here's one thing that I noticed about Aljamain Sterling, at least at bantamweight, I know this is at featherweight, is that he tends to fatigue deep into fights. Every single time that this guy's been in the championship rounds, whether it was against Peter Yan, Henry Cejudo, et cetera, this guy always loses the championship rounds. So I'm not exactly sure if that's going to change now that he's moving up to featherweight. But what I do know is that if he at all starts to fall off a cliff in this 4th and 5th round, Ortega is the last guy that you want to show any weakness to. Because like we've mentioned many times, Ortega is a comeback finisher. Look at his fight with Renato Moicano. Look at his second fight with Yair Rodriguez. This is what this guy is known for. So for Aljamain Sterling, I think if this fight goes the distance, that Aljamain Sterling is going to, win a decision. It's just about, do you think Brian Ortega can get a 4th or 5th round, or maybe even a late 3rd round finish here? That's really what it comes down to for me. Now, I haven't really liked the current form of Brian Ortega. I kind of feel like he's been looking a bit washed. And with Sterling, ever since he's moved up to featherweight, I don't really want to talk about the Calvin Kattar fight because we all know that Calvin Kattar, is currently the ghost of Calvin Kattar. But that Evloev fight, man, I mean, Evloev is like considered, the dark horse of the division. A lot of people think he's the uncrowned #1 contender. And Sterling had a near 50-50 fight with him. Like, I scored it for Evloev, but like, man, that fight came down to the wire. And if you bet Evloev, you were sweating your balls off in that spot. Like, no BS about it. Let's not look each other in the eye with a straight face and act like that was smooth sailing for Evloev, because it wasn't. So I think that Sterling is performing on a higher level than Ortega at this moment. So for that reason, I do agree with Sterling being favored, and I think he should win this fight. It's just about, after he picks apart Ortega for 3 straight rounds, then we enter the 4th round. Is Sterling going to dive headfirst into a guillotine? Is he going to get triangled? Is he going to get left hook KO'd? Because when Sterling loses fights, he gets knocked out in devastating fashion. Look at the Marlon Moraes fight. Look at the Sean O'Malley fight. So I'm just saying, I definitely think Ortega's live for an opportunistic finish. But if Ortega doesn't get it, I think he's getting picked apart here. Now, I'd love to see some grappling scrambles in this fight, because Sterling, obviously, he's known for his back-taking abilities, and Ortega is a high-level black belt with nasty triangles, nasty guillotine chokes. So I'd love to see them grapple. I'd like to see them strike too. Like I said, I think the volume goes to Sterling, the power goes to Ortega, the opportunistic finishing goes to Ortega, and the minute winning ability goes to Sterling. So I'm going to lean Sterling here, but 5 rounds makes it kind of interesting. But yeah, my pick is Sterling. Featured bout in the heavyweight division. We got a matchup between Sergei Pavlovich, he's 19-3, taking out Waldo Cortes Acosta, who's 14-1. Currently, they got it Sergei Pavlovich -225. The comeback on Waldo Cortes Acosta is +190. So both men are 33. Waldo Cortes Acosta is 1 inch taller at 6'4". But listen to this, guys. It's going to be Sergei Pavlovich, who has an 8-inch reach advantage at 84 inches of reach. Damn, an 8-inch reach advantage. That might be crucial here, because we know that Waldo Cortes Acosta, he's kind of transitioned from being like a baseball player to throwing hands in MMA. Throws that overhand right like it's a fastball. And if you sleep on a guy like Waldo Cortes Acosta, I mean, you might get slept, and he might come out here and get an upset. So he's a very dangerous guy. I like his progression. He's athletic. And then on the other side with Sergei Pavlovich, I know he ran into some hard times, but look who he ran into some hard times against. Tom Aspinall, the current undisputed UFC heavyweight champion, and Alexander Volkov, who, is a top 3 guy as far as I'm concerned. But you see what happened when Pavlovich took a step down against Jairzinho. I mean, I thought he gave Jairzinho a tour of the octagon. I actually thought that Sergei Pavlovich showed off some new wrinkles in his game. So here against Cortes Acosta, yeah, I think that, Cortes Acosta might be able to kind of, use some straight punches and volume and whatnot. But like, man, I think that Cortes Acosta is going to show Pavlovich a lot of respect, especially when he feels this power. And I think that power might actually suppress the volume of Cortes Acosta. And from there, the volume's at a, kind of an even playing field. And I think the power is going to be the difference of Pavlovich, not to mention that 8-inch reach advantage can come into play. And if he wants to, I think he can mix in some takedowns too. Also, outside the UFC, Pavlovich has 5-round experience, which I'm not sure that people know about, but it's true. He does. So although people regard him as a first-round or bust type fighter, that's simply not the case. And you saw that in his last fight against Jairzinho. He can win 3-round decisions, no problem. I think Pavlovich is going to come out here, whether it's a knockout or a decision. I think Pavlovich is coming out here, and I think he's going to defeat Waldo Cortes Acosta, get back on a win streak, and re-enter his name in the mix. So, yeah, I'm going Sergei Pavlovich to come out here and win this fight. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Mudaerji, he's 17-7, taking on Kevin Borjas, who's 10-3. Currently, they got it Mudaerji minus 165. The comeback on Kevin Borjas is plus 145. So Mudaerji is 29. Kevin Borjas is 27. Mudaerji is 5'8". Kevin Borjas is 5'5". And Mudaerji has a 72-inch reach advantage. Excuse me, has a 72-inch reach compared to Borjas's 68-inch reach. Very interesting fight because Mudaerji loves to bang. Kevin Borjas loves to bang. So these two are probably going to stand and bang until one man falls. We all know that Mudaerji has a massive weakness on the mat. Now, I think it's gotten a bit better, but it's still definitely a weakness in his game. That being said, Kevin Borjas has never shot a single takedown in the UFC. He looks to bang with everyone. And man, Kevin Borjas is impressive. Like that fight he had with Josh Van, dude, he was doing really good against Josh Van. He even dropped Josh Van, but we all know that Van, man, you drop this guy, you wake him up, and then you piss him off, and then he comes back with insane volume. And we also know Joshua Van's fighting for a UFC title, but that was a good experience for Borjas, and I walked away impressed in that fight. But I got to tell you what, that next fight he had against Alessandro Costa, I was the opposite of impressed. I was like, man, Costa just made this guy look like an amateur, like a regional fighter almost. Then the very next fight against Lazy Boy, man, Borjas looked impressive again. So I liked Borjas's Contender Series fight. I liked the Van fight. I liked the Lazy Boy fight. It was only the Alessandro Costa fight that was kind of a bad look. And on the other side was Mudaerji. I mean, like I said, man, this guy's long. This guy's aggressive. He's got good striking, but if you take this guy down, he's got a big weakness there, but Borjas doesn't look to take anyone down. So I think these two are going to stand and bang. And Mudaerji hasn't really lost too many fights that have taken place standing. Like, don't get me wrong, when guys mix up all levels, they can have success, but when they strictly stand with him, they tend to lose that. So I do kind of think that Mudaerji, being the longer guy here, keep this on the outside and possibly match the volume of Borjas, but land the bigger shots and get those reactions from the judges and from the fans in China to get that unanimous decision win. So I'm actually going to come out here and pick Mudaerji to beat Kevin Borjas via unanimous decision. Mudaerji is my pick. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Taiyilake Nueraji, he's 11-1, taking on Kiefer Crosbie, who's 10-5. Currently, they got it Nueraji minus 470. The comeback on Kiefer Crosbie is plus 370. So Nueraji is 24. Kiefer Crosbie is 35. Nueraji is 6'2". Kiefer Crosbie is 5'11. And Nueraji is gonna have a 6-inch reach advantage at 76 inches of reach. So Nueraji's making his UFC debut here. And he's a lot of fun, man. This guy comes to bang. I describe this guy as a brawler. I describe him as ultra aggressive, and he's well-rounded too. I've seen him knock guys out. I've also seen him go out there, destroy guys, then get submissions like arm bars and stuff like that. So he's decently well-rounded. Where I think he's going to run into issues is that with that enthusiastic brawling style, he's going to leave a lot of openings. However, I'm not convinced that someone like Kiefer Crosbie is the one to capitalize on those openings that Nueraji likes to leave. Kiefer Crosbie, I'm not impressed with this guy at all. I kind of view him as like a YouTube boxer. I mean, this guy boxed that Aaron Chalmers guy and he lost. You know what I'm saying? This guy's a quick tapper. This guy's a front runner. I think that Kiefer Crosbie, his best moment is the first 2 minutes of any fight, right? When you're fresh, when he's fresh, and he's feeling confident, he's going to swing big. And I'm not going to say he's the softest hitter I've ever seen. So, if he lands clean on you, maybe he can hurt you. But after that 2-minute mark, he runs out of ideas and I just don't think he's UFC caliber at all. I think there's a reason they're flying this guy to China to fight against a Chinese fighter who's that much younger than him. And I think is going to come out here and finish him. So I'm not sure if it's going to be a knockout. I'm not sure if it's going to be a submission. But what I am sure of is that Nueraji is going to come out here and destroy Kiefer Crosbie, most likely in the first round. So I'm going Nueraji to come out here and get this finish in China. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Maheshate. He's 10-4, taking on Gage Young, who's 9-3. Currently, they got it. Gage Young -115. Maheshate is -105. So both men are 25. Maheshate is 6 feet compared to Gage Young's 5'9", and Maheshate is going to have a 1.5 inch reach advantage at 71.5 inches of reach. So right off the bat, I'm kind of surprised that Maheshate is the underdog in this spot. Like, what exactly has Gage Young done to earn favorite status in a UFC fight? Y'all let me know. Like, I'm not saying Gage Young's bad by any means. I don't think he's bad at all. Like, I was talking about how I think Kiefer Crosbie is bad and this and that. Well, that's true. But Gage Young's good, man. It's just that he's a little bit on the green side, and he's fighting a guy with a lot more high-level experience than him. We're talking about a guy in Maheshate who's knocked out current top 15 guys like Steve Garcia, who's gone out there and beat, seasoned UFC vets like Gabriel Benitez. And then the fights he's lost are all to experienced people. So this guy is battle-tested, Maheshate, especially for a 25-year-old kid. And in his counterpart, Gage Young, who's also 25, I mean, I like the fight he had on Contender Series with Quinlan Salkild. I like the UFC debut against Evan Elder. It's just that he tends to kind of slow down as fights progress, and I don't really see him making the kind of requisite adjustments that I like to see. In-fight adjustments is what I'm talking about. Like, I just don't see it. Like, if he can come out here, land big on you, and kind of dictate the pace, then things tend to go his way. But as soon as you have an answer for him, again, it's not that he breaks. I'm not questioning his heart by any means. It's just like he runs out of ideas, kind of like other guys we've talked about. What I think is the key to victory for Gage Young is that Maheshate kind of has a bit of that tall man's defense, right? Fights with that chin straight up in the air, kind of a stationary target at times. And we know what those tall men, I mean, he fights at 155 pounds and he's 6 feet, 6'1". So yeah, I mean, there's a chance you can capitalize on him exiting the pocket and lifting that chin as he does it. So Gage Young is live for a knockout here. But let me say this, Maheshate is also live for a knockout. He hits very hard himself, whether it's with that right hand, whether it's with his knees, but also he's live for a decision. I think that Maheshate, just with that experience, with this fight being in his backyard and with him, kind of fighting a green opponent, I think Maheshate can come out here, win this unanimous decision, and get this upset. Like I said, I'm kind of surprised that he's the underdog in this spot. No disrespect to Gage Young. I do think he's got a bright future. It's just that he's not exempt from paying dues. And Maheshate, boy, has he paid dues. So for that reason, I'm going Maheshate to keep this fight long and find his range quicker than Gage Young does. So I'm going Maheshate to win this fight. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Lone Kavanagh. He's 9-0, taking on Charles Johnson, who's 17-7. Currently, they got it Lone Kavanagh -200. The comeback on Charles Johnson is +170. So Lone Kavanagh is 26. Charles Johnson is going to be 5 inches taller at 5'9". He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage at 70 inches of reach. So if you're a UFC fighter with aspirations of hitting the top 15 and you haven't figured out how to beat Charles Johnson yet, there's a big issue. And what I'm trying to say here is that the blueprint's been written on how to beat Charles Johnson. Everybody knows that Charles Johnson doesn't really come alive until late into the second round and until that third round. So, yeah, let Charles Johnson go ahead and win the third round, but all you got to do is bank these first two. Like, Charles Johnson can't help himself. This guy's got an insane ego where he talks about he's the best 5-round fighter in the UFC. The guy's never even been 5 rounds once in the UFC. He's been 5 rounds outside the UFC. He fought Cody Durden and got 30-27, didn't even win that third round. Had that been a 5-round fight and had it actually gone the distance, he would have lost a 48-47. So best 5-round fighter in the UFC, my ass. Then there's kind of an issue with his takedown defense. Now, I think it's gotten a lot better, and I also think he makes you work, and I think he's good at getting back up to his feet. So there's kind of a double-edged sword there. Yes, he might give up some takedowns, but you'll also kind of gas yourself out trying to take him down. So you got to be kind of careful with the wrestling approach with him. Like, he's gotten better about that. But where it's really at, is you got to just put that volume on him in the first 2 rounds and don't let him find his range. And then, coast in round 3, play it safe, win a 29-28 decision. I think that Lone Kavanagh represents that new school fighter where the volume's kind of on the lower side, but everything he throws, he makes it count. It's power shots, but it's power volume, if that makes sense. Like I said, he's not going to land 100 significant strikes in a fight. It's going to be like more like 60, maybe 70. But everything he lands is hard. Everything he lands is with good technique, and everything he lands is with intent and purpose, and there's reasoning behind it. Kavanagh is not just going to spam random bullshit for the sake of it. Kavanagh is a very smart, mature fighter, especially for his age. And I think this guy's got a very, very bright future in the UFC. And honestly, I think he's a future top 10 guy. So while, of course, there's a chance that this could be a vet lesson, it could be first L time, you can't write off those possibilities. I just think that this guy personally is smart enough, is technical enough, is athletic enough to come out here, know exactly what you got to do, win these first 2 rounds. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to win the 3rd round as well, but just bank these first 2 rounds. And then when Charles starts to come alive in that 3rd round, maybe coast a little bit, just stay defensively responsible, don't take too much damage, boom, 29-28 decision banked. If not a 30-27, if not a finish along the way, because we have seen Charles Johnson start to get hurt in a lot of fights, whether it's Azat Maxim almost finishing him in the 1st round, whether it was Temirov hurting him bad in that 1st round. Do not sleep on the possibility of Kavanagh coming out here and possibly being the first man to finish Charles Johnson inside the octagon. Now, is that what I'm actually predicting is going to happen? No, I'm predicting it's going to be a Kavanagh decision. But I'm just saying, Johnson is a 35-year-old flyweight. Now, 35 years old at heavyweight, at light heavyweight, at middleweight, even welterweight, I'm not too worried about. But at flyweight, I'm super worried about. This guy's going to get old overnight. And I'm not sure when it's going to be. It could be this Saturday. It could be the next fight. It could be 2 fights from now. But the bottom line is his decline is going to happen soon. 35 at flyweight, yeah. Unless you're Pantoja, that shit ain't going to last. So give me Lone Kavanagh to come out here, know the proper game plan on how to beat Charles Johnson, and come out here and execute it in China. I'm going Lone Kavanagh to come out here and get the biggest win of his career against Charles Johnson. Next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Rongzhu. He's 26-6, taking on Austin Hubbard, who is 16-9. Currently, they got it Rongzhu minus 250. The comeback on Austin Hubbard is plus 210. So Austin Hubbard is 33. Rongzhu is 25. Austin Hubbard's going to be 1 inch taller at 5'10". Both men are going to have a 71-inch reach. Longtime fans of Half the Battle know that we regard Austin Hubbard as harmless Hubbard. Listen, no disrespect to the guy at all, because he is a battle-tested vet. He has paid his dues, but man, the guy is just so harmless at the UFC level. It's ridiculous. Like, he literally causes no damage whatsoever. The guy does no harm to his opponents. And on the other side with Rongzhu, man, he's a young stud, and he's definitely paid his dues. He's had some tough setbacks, and he's come back better every single time. He's got good hands, good volume, a really good chin, and he's maturing. This guy ain't dyeing his hair pink no more and missing weight by 5 pounds. Now he's coming out here making weight, looking serious, looking like an actual UFC fighter. So I'm very impressed with the current form of Rongzhu and what he's turning into. And I just got to say, man, if you think that harmless Hubbard is going to win a judge's decision in China, then I'm sorry, my friend, but Zhu wrong. I got to go Rongzhu to come out here. And whether it's a knockout, whether it's a unanimous decision, we don't pick harmless Hubbard to win UFC fights, let alone against the star prospect in his, home country. Like, we know what they're doing here. It's never harmless Hubbard. It's Rongzhu in the spot. I think he's going to land the power punches, the volume, get the bigger reactions, possibly even hurt Hubbard. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was the first man to finish Hubbard inside the octagon. Like, Hubbard, man, he's a durable dude. Like I said, like, he causes no harm, but he'll take a lot of harm, But one of these days, he's finally going to get finished. Now, I'm not going to officially predict it to be this Saturday, but I'm not going to be surprised one bit if it's this Saturday. But official pick, I'm coming out here and taking Rongzhu to defeat Austin harmless Hubbard, probably impressively too. And next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Michel Pereira. He's 31-13, taking on Kyle Daukaus, who's 15-4. Currently, they got it Michel Pereira minus 260. The comeback on Kyle Daukaus is plus 220. So Kyle Daukaus is a year older at 32. He's 2 inches taller at 6'3", and he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage at 76 inches of reach. So they called Kyle Daukaus. He's getting that return back to the UFC. A lot of people think it's really well deserved. I'm not really one of those people. I don't think this guy belongs in the UFC. And you watch, the recent wins he's had, they're all against like literal, absolute bottom of the barrel cans, man. Like, yeah, I'm not impressed at all with the guys Daukaus has been beating. And I think Daukaus can be bullied just like he was in his first UFC stint. And with Michel Pereira, all this fight comes down to for me is when you watch Michel Pereira's fight against Fluffy Hernandez, you know that Fluffy Hernandez took his soul. So it's one of those things where has Michel Pereira gotten his soul back? Because you watched that fight against Abus Magomedov, and it was clear as hell. Like he did not want to be there. He looked awful. Like it looked like he lost his soul. You know, people are saying that fight was fixed. That fight was not fixed. Watch his fight with Fluffy Hernandez, dude. Like he got his soul taken. So of course he looked like shit his very next fight. The question is, has he retrieved his soul yet? Because if he has, he's going to walk through Kyle Daukaus, like probably in the first round. If he hasn't, I still think he should beat Kyle Daukaus. Like Kyle Daukaus is scrawny, unathletic, just yeah. Like I said, Daukaus might be kind of opportunistic with Darce chokes and stuff like that, but like at the UFC level, is he? You know, this ain't Jamie Pickett anymore. You know what I mean, man? Like, I don't know. I just don't think Kyle Daukaus or his brother Chris Daukaus have much UFC business. So I'm gonna go Michel Pereira by default, but I want to see Michel Pereira enthusiastic to actually be there. I want to see Michel Pereira come in there with an attitude, come in there wanting to perform, wanting to put on a show like he used to. And if he does, I think he's going to dig to the body. I think he's going to throw some flashy stuff. And I think he's probably going to get Kyle Daukaus out of there in the first round. But just proceed with caution in case, Michel Pereira's soul has in fact left him and not returned. And if that's the case, it's anyone's fight. But I'm going to predict that for this fight, he gets his soul back and he comes out here and runs through Kyle Daukaus. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Yizha. He's 25-5, taking on Westin Wilson, who is 17-9. Currently, they got a Yizha minus 1,200. The comeback on Westin Wilson is plus 700. So Yizha is 28, Westin Wilson's 36. Yizha is 5'7", Westin Wilson is 6'1". Westin Wilson is going to have a 2-inch reach advantage at 73 inches of reach. So, as you guys know, Westin Wilson, probably, one of the worst fighters on the UFC roster. It's crazy. We got a few of them on this card, whether we're talking about Kiefer Crosbie or Westin Wilson. He seems like a nice guy, but man, when you're a 6'1" featherweight, you fight with that chin straight up in the air, he leaves way too many openings with that tall man's defense. He's kind of goofy. He's not athletic at all. I think he can be killed, with the knockouts. Now, Yizha, minus 1,200 in this economy. Listen, I ain't laying no minus 1,200 on no Yizha. I think Yizha is kind of a jobber, but I think that he's one of these, well-rounded journeymen who is probably not going to win too many UFC fights, but he's going to win this one, right? Like the odds imply that, but I would not get near no minus 1,200 on Yizha. But I do think that Yizha is the tougher, more durable guy here. Like even that Gabriel Santos fight, that was insane that Yizha didn't get finished in that spot. So credit to him, man. Like he is insanely durable. You cannot say the same thing about Westin Wilson. But Westin Wilson is kind of opportunistic with knee bars. He won against Jekka Sergei by knee bar, and he almost got Joe Anderson. He didn't almost get Joe Anderson in a knee bar, but he had a knee bar attempt against Joe Anderson. I'm not sure that kind of stuff's going to work against Yizha, and I don't think that karate style is going to work either. So I'm going to go with Yizha. It doesn't take a genius to pick a minus 1,200, but this minus 1,200 is not the same as a Sergei minus 1,200, where it's all but a lock that the guy's going to win. Again, I'm picking Yizha, but I don't trust this guy, and I don't think he's anything special whatsoever. So I would proceed with caution at odds like this. I would just pass altogether, but Yizha is going to be my pick in this fight. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Long Zhao. He's 27-9, taking on SuYoung Yu, who's 15-3. Currently, they got it SuYoung -130. The comeback on Long Zhao is +110. So SuYoung's 29, Long Zhao's 27. Long Zhao's 5'8", SuYoung is 5'6". And Long Zhao is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage at 70 inches of reach. So here we got China versus Korea in China. Should be a lot of fun, a lot of pride on the line. And I think what this fight comes down to is, SuYoung is going to be trying to get multiple takedowns in this spot. And Long Zhao is going to try to keep this fight standing and use that range and box up someone like SuYoung. And honestly, I think that what I've seen from Long Zhao so far, I do think his takedown defense and his get-up game are good enough to, stuff these takedowns. But should he get taken down against SuYoung, I think he's going to be able to pop back up to his feet. And then once he is standing, that range, I anticipate it being a problem for SuYoung. I think that SuYoung, he's going to start being hesitant to close the distance. And if Long Zhao can get some of those up the middle feints going, like feint those knees, feint those uppercuts, and really make SuYoung not want to close the distance, that's where I think Long Zhao can really take over this fight and then start to feel more comfortable letting his volume and his hands go. So if that's the case and it plays out how I'm thinking it does, then I'm going to go with Long Zhao to come out here and probably win this decision against SuYoung. So keep this fight standing, use your volume, use your striking, and I think Long Zhao probably gets this upset. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Diyar Nurgozhay, he's 10-1, taking on Uran Saltybaldiev, who's 9-1. Currently, they got it Saltybaldiev -140. The comeback on Diyar Nurgozhay is +120. So Saltybaldiev is 31. Nurgozhay is 28. Saltybaldiev is 6'4". Nurgozhay is 6'2". And Saltybaldiev is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage at 79 inches of reach. So I got to admit, when I watched Saltybaldiev's fight against Boudet live, and they scored that fight for Boudet, I was kind of a Saltybaldiev, because I thought my boy won that fight. But watching it back, I understand why Boudet won that fight. Here with Nurgozhay, listen, man, I think we should cut Nurgozhay a little slack on that last fight. That was very uncharacteristic. The 5-pound weight miss, how he looked in that fight, it was clear as day that Buddy was compromised. Now, if one of y'all can point to another fight where he's looked that bad, please do. But I don't think that was a representation of what Nurgozhay brings to the table. I simply think that was an off night. Now, if he misses weight by 5 pounds again, then, maybe this guy just has some kind of complex about, performing at the highest level. But I just think that was an off night for Nurgozhay, because when I watched Nurgozhay's regional tape, this guy's got a presence about him. He might not have the most volume in the world, but he hits with impact and people respect him a lot. And going to that Contender Series fight, I was even more impressed with his opponent than I was with him. And Diyar Nurgozhay went out there and really, really put it on that opponent. And I was like, damn, okay, this is someone to pay attention to. Now, he's just a kid, so whatever happened in that last fight, we don't want to see it happen again. But if he can come out here, get back to the guy I saw on the regional tape and the Contender Series fight, then I don't think he should be an underdog in the spot. Look, I like Saltybaldiev. I mean, his name is Saltybaldiev. What's not to like? What a fucking badass name, dude. I'm going to name my firstborn Saltybaldiev. No, I'm just kidding. But look, Saltybaldiev's got good cardio. He's a tough guy. Like, he comes to fight. But I just don't see anything truly special about his game that makes me think that, okay, man, he's got such a clear edge here. If he just takes the fight there, if he does these things, he's going to come out here and perform like a favorite. I'm not sure. Whereas Nurgozhay, if he keeps this fight standing and gets off on, the timing for that high kick or whatever the case may be, maybe starts mixing in some takedowns too. We know that Saltybaldiev ain't the best off his back. Like, I just see more past the victory for Diyar Nurgozhay. And I do want to write off that debut to whether it was a debut stunt, whether he was sick, whatever the case may be. I just want to write it off as that's not an accurate and fair representation of who Diyar Nurgozhay truly is. And Saltybaldiev, like, I think he's going to compete. I think he's going to be tough, but I think the odds should actually be flipped. So I'm going to go with Nurgozhay to come out here and get his first UFC win, and possibly by knockout too. Well, my friends, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Shanghai? I mean, obviously, besides the main event, I think that the fight to watch is probably going to be Maheshate versus Gage Young. You got two guys that are super hungry, not to mention they're going to keep it standing, look to bang, look to get a knockout. You know, these guys desperately want to get back in the win column, especially Gage Young, who's 0-2 inside the octagon, lost his debut in the UFC, lost his Contender Series fight, flying all the way over from KC. You know that he wants to get back in the win column. And Maheshate, like I said, he's knocked out top 15 guys like Steve Garcia. He's won hard-fought decision against seasoned vets like Gabriel Benitez, and you know he wants to get back on track too. So I think that these two are going to go toe-to-toe, and for that reason, Maheshate versus Gage Young is my fight to watch. Now, who is my fighter to watch? My friends, my fighter to watch is Lone Kavanagh. I think that he's one of the best prospects in the flyweight division. He's currently unranked. They just got Charles Johnson back in that number 15 spot. Why do you think they did that? Because after Lone Kavanagh comes out here and defeats Charles Johnson, he's going to be a top 15 guy. He's going to be the one that starts to make his climb, his ascension towards the top. And he brings that new school point fighting style that I really like. The volume's a little bit on the lower side, but everything he throws is with big power. It's calculated, it's technical, it's precise, and it's effective. I'm going Lone Kavanagh here to be my fighter to watch. Well, my friends, we did it. It's going down, I think, at like 4 a.m. for us. So make sure y'all wake up in time, and best of luck. I want to thank y'all so much for helping me get to 8,000 subscribers on YouTube. Absolutely incredible. Once we get to 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away free signed Malcolm Wellmaker merch. So make sure y'all hit that subscribe button and help me get to 10K subs. Also, smash the like button, leave me a comment, follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks, on Instagram at Half the Battle Pod, on TikTok at Half the Battle Podcast. I sincerely appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for all the kind words. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.